The Catholics of Oz is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to episode 85 of The Catholics of Oz. The Catholics of Oz is a show where we discuss faith, culture, and what's been happening from an Aussie perspective. Whether it's synods and science, apostolates and apps, providence or productivity, you can hear it right now on The Catholics of Oz. Hello, I'm Lindsay, Sant, your host for episode 85. It's been a while. I have to apologize first of all before we start this show because I got sick last episode. And so we didn't have a last episode. And Caroline was sick, so we couldn't have a last episode. Lino would have had to do it on his own and he wasn't keen, and we understand why. And now Lino and Caroline are both sick. However, I'm very, very excited because it's been a while and I'm happy to reintroduce a good old, an original, an OG co-host of the show, Gerry Trapnell. How are you today?
Welcome back to me, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. It has been a while. Speaking of that.
Yeah. I mean, we were both younger and fresher when you first started on this podcast, weren't we?
Yeah. I think I made it up till about when COVID hit, and then
Yes.
my job as accountant really basically pulled me in. So while a lot of people didn't have a whole lot to do, accountants got plenty to do during pandemic times.
Yeah.
And that really just sucked the time out of my weeks, my weekends, and it just became... Yeah. Funnily enough, Lino came back on board about the same time I got,
That's
life
right.
got too busy for me to fit the podcasting in. So it's almost like a seamless fit, him in and me out.
Yeah.
And now that him and Caroline are out, funnily enough, the kids are away today. They're at a Marian retreat today.
Yes.
And so I had the morning free.
Perfect. Yeah,
And
that's
so-
good. And
so last night at our in-laws' house, you were just talking and saying, "Oh, I've got to do a podcast on
I
my
know
own
it's going to be
tomorrow."
solo today. Yeah.
And I said, "Well, I'm free. Do you want? I'll see if I can get the dust off the microphone, and do you want me to join you?" And I saw your eyes light up, and you even had to bargain with Isabel.
Yes, that's
because
right.
I couldn't fit into your time slot of, what was it, 9 o'clock?
About 9 o'clock in the morning, usually. Yeah.
You just see my eyes fall out of my head when you mentioned 9 o'clock in the morning. Ugh, it's a Saturday, man.
Yeah.
Isabel managed to bargain you for a sushi lunch.
Yes. So she gets
to
sushi out of
your
this.
time slot.
Yeah. It's a good deal.
That's where I went wrong. I
Yeah.
say, Lindsay, I'll do podcasting if you treat me to sushi lunch.
Oh no, you missed your chance.
I didn't get anything out of this. I'm donating this time. What?
Yeah.
What a fool.
I'll drop some sushi off at your house later on. Yeah. Extra wasabi. Yeah, that's your thing, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And can I say, I can see
on
where you're
toast.
sitting right now at your in your study. So Jared actually hasn't moved from that chair since the beginning of the pandemic in 2020 in March. So he actually physically just hasn't gotten up from there. So he's been accounting the whole time, and now he's podcasting. So well done, Gerry. That chair must be very warm now.
Yeah, I had to actually pull some of the cobwebs off. They were sort of keeping me still just to get the microphone out.
It's just frozen to that chair. All right, Gerry, I am so happy that you're here. And yes, as soon as you said, "Oh, I'm free tomorrow," I was like, heck yes, you're in. You got the job. Yeah, we'll even put you back on the payroll. Yeah, it's not much. It's like nothing, but but we'll put you back on anyway.
Yeah, well, I know you've done solo podcasting before. I know you felt sort of uncomfortable about it. It's kind of like, how to put it? It's kind of like one hand clapping, when you have Lino and Caroline there, you raise a question and then, one of them will jump in to answer it. But when you're on your own, there's nothing there. So Lindsay, today I'm happy to be your second hand. Man, that makes me feel used.
I'm very happy to have someone to clap with. It's very good. All right. So before we continue, if you're new to listening to the Catholics of Oz, first of all, welcome. You can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, or your favorite podcast player. Don't forget to give us a 5-star review wherever you listen, because your positive feedback helps us to reach more people, which is what we are all about. SQPN also hosts the Catholics of Oz on YouTube with all of its other shows, so you can subscribe there. Just search for SQPN and then hit the bell to get notifications when new episodes are released. So, Gerry, with that, let's start with Faith Beyond Borders.
Well, I'm actually feeling rather good about this. I think we've all arrived at a very special place, eh? Oh. Spiritually, ecumenically.
How do you make somebody love you without affecting free will?
Welcome to my world, son. You come up with an answer to that one, you let me know.
Yes, I had to work very hard to pass Latin and theology quite. Those are, of course, the most important things.
Oh, yeah.
I'd sit this one out, Cap.
I don't see how I can.
These guys come from legend. They're basically gods.
There's only one God, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
So, Gerry, today we were having just, actually, last night when you heroically jumped in to save the show for me, so I wouldn't have to be talking to myself and clapping on my own, high-fiving myself. We were talking about topics, and I thought, because my youngest sister, Marilyn, is going to be getting married on October the 20th, so very, very, very soon close to the release date of this episode, I thought, why don't we talk about marriage? Because I've had marriage on my mind because I've been talking to my sister about it. Had Jamie's Bucks evening. It was last weekend. So with the Bucks weekend, I should mention as well. So I'm one of the groomsmen. So I didn't organize it, but I was kind of like in the background. Just we would listen to the best man as he coming up with ideas. He did a really good job, and we'd just be talking back and forth. So here's what I was dreading, right? I had a really good time, by the way, but here's what I was dreading. So Marilyn, my sister, is getting married to Jamie. Jamie is a past student from my school. Now, when I say past student, we're talking over a decade ago now. It must be about a decade, right? So, they're both 27 now. And so the best man and the other two groomsmen that I'm with, all past students. So some of them I taught year 7 English. One of them I taught for religious education year 12. So I was thinking, my goodness, I'm going to be hanging out basically with a bunch of 27-year-olds. I was thinking I'm going to be a fish out of water. Anyway, in the end, it ended up being really good. We did an activity called axe throwing. So think of like archery, but throwing axes instead. It was tournament style. No one got hurt, thankfully, and because they don't let you drink and throw axes at the same time. So that's a smart move. Yep.
I was going to say, with obviously our own Bucks, we did paintballing, so they didn't have a shoot the buck section.
Yeah, yes.
With the axes?
No, they didn't have it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because they had a bucks run, didn't they, with paintball, where everyone would just surround the buck, and shoot, just shoot it like crazy. They didn't have an axe the buck. No, thankfully, no. That might have changed the wedding plans just a little bit. They might have got married in hospital or something instead. Yeah, we should mention at your Bucks we did that paintball. I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but we had the Bucks run, so everyone was lined up on two sides, and then you had to run through all of us while everyone just like shot at you crazy with his paintballs. Your dad thought it would be funny to just shoot everyone else because everyone was so focused on you, so he's just shooting everyone else. It was quite funny.
Yeah, he was on one side, he was shooting everyone on the other side.
Yes, and I could see him maniacally laughing away. He had a great time with that. So anyway, we thought we'd talk about marriage today as part of this. So, Gerry, you and I, have both been married. Well, so I got married in 2008. You were 2010. Did I get that?
A couple of years behind.
Yeah, just a few years after. Yep. And we are surrounded by married couples. I mean, in the year that I got married, we had Lena and Bernie. We had 2 other friends from church, Paul and Vicky. And then we had my sister Caroline and her husband Phil. So 2008 was a big wedding year. And then we had yours, well on the way. We were, getting ready for that one too. So we've seen quite a lot of marriages. Let's just say that. Yeah. And we've both been in the game for quite a while now. So you're 12 years, is that right? Ish? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's because I'm 14 now, I think it is. Yeah. So it's been a while.
You're a teenager.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I thought today I might just say a couple of things about marriage using a resource that I found on Melbourne Catholic yesterday. And then maybe we'll just talk about our experiences and, our sage old advice that, about what makes it work and what's been some of the joys and the struggles that come with it as well. So, the basic thing that I wanted to really say about an understanding of marriage is that from a theological perspective, marriage, is a sacrament that reflects who God is. So we know God is triune, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And, we say God is, we say we have one God who is 3 persons, which thousands and thousands of, or I should say even millions of words have been written about in order to try and explain what seems like a strange paradox. But what makes it make sense, the triune God, this 1 and 3, is actually just the word love. So we know John's Gospel, God is love. That's the basic description of God. if we look at the Christian understanding of love, which might be different to the understanding of love that you see on Home and Away and other places where love is, I love you until, the first problem
Next
comes
episode.
along. Yeah, exactly. Until 3 episodes later, it's like, oh, actually, no, I don't love you. I love him instead, or whatever it might be. The word love is the key thing. Love is uniting. It's bonding. It brings things together that can't be undone in a way. So the triune love of God, the idea is God is a loving community of Father, Son, and Spirit. And one theologian who I can't remember the name now had said, one way to understand that God can be three at one is that if you were to look at God, if God was standing right in front of you, the triune God was standing right in front of you, all you would see is the oneness, the unity, the loving bond. So God is so close in as a loving community that all you would see is the unity, the oneness. And so now we go to our weddings, right? And what we say, what the spouses say to each other in a wedding is that they are making a commitment to bond in love, right? In that love of God, not just Home and Away love. People might not know what Home and Away is actually, because I'm thinking about an Australian one. Just think of your whatever soap opera. What do you watch? Bold and Beautiful, whatever. I don't know. What else is there?
Wonderful. Yep.
Yeah, or whatever it might be. Yeah. So
just totally versed in those.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, just think about those. Any soap opera or any chick flick where people say they're in love and suddenly it falls apart because I don't know, they break a toenail or something. Whatever the situation might be.
You're doing a real good job of letting everyone know that you're not a frequent watcher. I applaud you.
I'm very happy for people to know that I don't frequently watch Home and Away or Bold and the Beautiful or any of them. Although I've got to say, just as a side note, Isabel used to watch Bold and the Beautiful, and I came home one day and there was an episode where, I don't know, the characters got lost on an island and they found these berries and then they had like a hallucinogenic effect, and anyway, it was so bizarre. That's probably why I don't watch it. It was so bizarre.
Cool.
Yeah.
My memory of Bold and the Beautiful is watching an episode with my wife one time, and then about 9 months later watching another episode, and it seemed to be the same storyline with the same characters.
Funny that
in their love triangle or whatever it was. Yeah. I feel like that's everyone who doesn't watch it regularly. That's probably their experience.
Yeah, it's like they're frozen in time. Like nothing actually happens in those shows. Yeah, except for the stare. When they just like. Before they change it
slightly off camera.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So anyway, where was I going with this? We're talking about the contrasting Christian love with the notions of love that we see in popular culture. So at a wedding, which is where I left off, the couple makes a commitment in their vows of love, and you can see some of the commitments that we make in our vows. Things like looking after each other through sickness and being there in times of health and the difficult times and the good times, till death do us part, which is it's a bit of a binding commitment there. But the thing is, when they unite themselves in love, there's a third person that's present there, and that's the priest who witnesses the couple making the vows. And when the priest is there as a witness, the priest is there as God, like God's representative. We talk about the priest being in persona Christi in all of the sacraments. So the couple is uniting themselves to each other in a special way, but also uniting themselves to God as well in a special way. Sacraments change us interiorly as a person. Once you participate in a sacrament, you are never the same again. Your personality might be the same. You'll be the same person. However, who you are interiorly as a spiritual person, that changes. That's reconfigured through a sacrament. So when we commit to a Catholic wedding, we're committing to a lot. It's nothing. It's not a contract. It's not like I'll be your BFF, for a little while or anything like that. It's not a friendship or anything. It's a heck of a lot more. So that's just like the basic of what marriage is. There's a whole lot more that we could say about marriage, but in a Catholic wedding, it's sacramental. It means a whole lot more. And it really is just that uniting of the two together to be together through all the difficulties. And also, I guess, not just an expression of their love publicly, but also a commitment to whatever comes next. So if we're blessed to have children, for example, the continuing the raising of a family and things like that. So that's a basic of what a wedding is. The marriage itself is a witness. So the witness begins at the wedding. It's a witness of faith. So it's a witness in a sense that the couple are making a public statement about their faith through the wedding ceremony itself, but then continuing that public witness and statement of their faith through what they do. They've in getting married, they've created a new community of two, which could become a community of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, depending on on how many people come along after that. And in that community becomes an invitation to others to be part of it as well. And what I mean by that is married couples have friends, for example. They support their friends and are supported by their friends too. Married couples may see a need somewhere in society and want to do something about it, but they use their marriage in whatever way it might be. Now, primarily, the first commitment of marriage is to your children, and then everything else that comes beyond that, depending on what we discern are our gifts, talents, etc. So that's it. That's what it is, and that's kind of what it does, and there's a whole lot more. I'll throw over to you, Gerry. Tell me about, I guess, your understanding of marriage, your experience of marriage, anything I said resonate there, even think back to your wedding, anything like that, anything that you want to throw in there?
Sure. Well, first of all, we'll go to my own wedding, and I just have to say, Lindsay, never again.
Yes, yeah, I agree. Never again. for obvious reasons, yeah.
Well, I suppose for me, that's more a subjective thing, because I don't think the process of the getting to know someone, the engagement, the marriage, and the last 12 years as well, I don't think that's something I could repeat with someone else, whatever happened in the future, with my own relationship. I'm obviously no intention to go down the path of splitting up, and there's nothing like that on the horizon at all or anything like that.
Yep.
But it just seems it's like something you commit your whole self to, and I can't imagine myself being able to do that a second time round. Obviously in society there are second marriages, remarriages, divorces, etc. I can't speak for someone else, but I'm speaking for myself. There's no way I could go through all of that again. It just seems that that you give so much of yourself into that it's not something that you can just repeat, rinse and repeat.
Yeah,
it's not something I could go. Not something. Done with that one. Let's go again. Give me a little while. Get back on my feet. Let's go again. I just don't think I can do that.
Yeah.
In terms of marriages in whole and in society, obviously, society these days loves to, project the differences and the diversity and all sorts of other things. But what I feel should be happening more often is, we talk about marriage as being, a staple of society. I think they should be encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
You should be encouraged to get married, and that's not to say the first person you see, let's have a Vegas wedding, and there we go. I've added one extra marriage to the gene pool.
Yeah.
No, it should be something that is not something you focus on and to the exclusion of everything else, but something you look towards as a goal. If you, and that's not to say everyone has to have that as a goal, because someone in the ministry will say, well, that's going to exclude me. But I suppose, it can be in terms of that marriage is an end goal of a relationship.
Yeah. And the document that we've we were looking at as a bit of background to this, it also affirms that statement as well. The idea that that we for example, it says that the contribution of marriage to society, for example, that this way in our relationships so in the church we wouldn't be excited about things like, say, hookup culture and things like that, where it's just like, it's a temporary relationship. Everyone knows it's going to be temporary. It's just
home and away culture,
that kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, in a sense, that kind of way of looking at relationships is almost like, trying on clothes to see if they fit and then throwing them aside if they're no good, or trying on clothes knowing that you're going to throw them aside at some point.
That's probably a better one, actually, because a relationship is in a way like trying on clothes, because if you're with someone who doesn't suit you, you do need to explore whether that's going to work. You can't just
and that's
look
the
at someone,
discernment. That's right. Yeah. Yes.
So absolutely. I like your second example there.
Yeah.
Knowing that you're going to throw them away.
Yeah. I think the church, we talk about the dignity of the human person, and in every relationship we're in, the rule should be, do I care about the dignity of this person that I'm currently in a relationship with? And that dignity involves making some pretty challenging decisions. So decisions such as, I'm discerning that this isn't the person that I can commit myself to, which is fair enough. That's all part of the process. What do they call it? Courting? Was courtship the good old word they used to use for that? When you, That's part of the discernment process. You don't want to commit yourself or put someone in the position of committing themselves when you both know this probably isn't going to work. We're not right for each other. So it's that whole thing about, like you said, exploring a relationship first, but going into a relationship with the right intention as well, that the person is not an object. The person is a someone. They're a person with a story and a history, and they have a dignity, and that dignity needs to be respected before anything else. I guess as you explore if this is, as they say, the one, things like that. Yeah. I mean,
it's I was going to say it's cliched language to say the one, but it is pretty much, one of the better descriptions of how you would ideally be approaching a relationship. Like I said earlier, that you go in there with the goal of marriage. I mean, it's obviously not stated when you have your first date.
Yes.
Hey, I'm going to marry you.
Yeah, let's get married.
4 or 5 years.
This sounds a bit forward, but yeah.
But I suppose that as you said comes back to your discernment of, is this person someone I can spend the rest of my life with? And that's probably, that's sort of how I would have done it, I would say. Yeah. I've only ever had one girlfriend who then became my fiancée and then wife, so I didn't really have to do the discerning. Maybe our discerning was, first pick from the top was the best one.
Yeah. Yep.
But I suppose, using that language and all those descriptions that we've just had, I can sort of now, it almost puts into context when I said initially, I don't think I can do this again. Well, that's probably why.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. We've made that decision. And the thing is, the decision wasn't made by one person, it's made by two people. And this is the beautiful thing about it, is that firstly, I guess in the beginning, you're discerning on your own because, there's still that trust isn't completely established right at the start, I guess. But then as that trust starts to grow, I guess you both start discerning together. I mean, would it be fair to say that you and Priscilla talked about marriage before you got engaged?
Yep, which I thought was going to be a strange thing. I always had in my head growing up that the production of the ring was the first sign that you were intending to get married.
Yes.
And looking back on that now, that just seems ludicrous.
Yeah, that's right. And that's kind of what I thought it was too. Yeah, it's what I was brought up. Which good old what was it? Remember the Flying Doctors? I remember the TV wedding was a big event. When I was growing up, the people would watch weddings on TV, and it was usually that the engagement was came out of nowhere, didn't see it coming. Yeah, but even with me and Isabel, it was the same thing. We when we started to realize that our relationship was becoming more serious and that it potentially could become permanent, we decided, we talked about it first. We didn't set a date or anything, but we thought, I didn't propose to Isabel until I was confident that her and I had both kind of made a decision that we're probably going to get married to each other.
I thought you were going to say I didn't want to propose to Isabel until I was confident of a yes.
Yeah, until I suss her out.
Because that's the big thing on those surprise engagements is I can't do this.
Yeah,
and
that's
the walk
right.
away and everyone's deflated.
Yes, that's right. Was it
the big TV moment?
Yes, another show that Isabel used to watch, The Bachelorette and The Bachelor, where it was they don't know if the yes is going to happen or the no or whatever else. Yeah, a little bit different.
That's whatever's good for TV, that one.
Yes, yeah. Reality TV, which is not so real. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, well, when you say reality TV, you got to put that reality in inverted commas.
Yes, I think so, yeah. Yeah, whereas the reality I think that we need to look at is that in deciding to get married, I mean, we're talking about real people without the inverted commas. They're people that have, like I said, a life, a story, a dignity, and a process that I guess they discern together. So let's speed it up a little bit or move a bit further forward. So we've gone through the engagement and the deciding to get married. Did you do anything in terms of a marriage preparation course or anything like that?
Yes. Now, I don't know if it's standard or whether it's Catholic standard or what, because I haven't looked back since. But once we made the decision to get married, and obviously we spoke to our priest at the time, Father Michael Shadbolt.
Yep. We
then got put onto I'm pretty sure it's the Catholic Archdiocese of Melbourne, had a marriage course where you go to the city for a weekend.
Yep.
And basically hang around other married couples while they produce a series of 10 sort of talks. Yeah, where they just had various subjects, some related to the, the Catholic side of marriage, so the spiritual side of it, and then they also dedicated some things to the practical side of it as well.
Yes, yeah.
Of living together, of being part of a union, having your own place, not living at home, not having your clothes washed and your meals cooked for you.
That's right. Yeah,
etc.
Even discussing finances and stuff. I think from memory they had some things on that, so doing that together. And so I think we might have done, now obviously I did a couple of years, but I think we might have done the same course because Isabel and I did a weekend course as well. I'm not sure if we got you onto the course or if Father Michael did, or I'm
pretty sure you would have done the course with Bernie and Lino and possibly all the other 2008 folk, or some of them.
No, I don't think it was only Lino and Bernie for this one. I don't know if when the others did theirs. Yeah, but
they were later in the year than you. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you so it's a Saturday and Sunday like we talked about. So on the Saturday, did they send you off with like a questionnaire for the two of you to sit down? It was like a booklet with questions, things for the two of you to consider to make sure that you've made the right decision. Because there were questions like, what are your thoughts on having children? When you get married, what are your thoughts on this and your thoughts on that? Did you have that as well?
We would have had something like it because I do remember wandering around I think it was Fitzroy Gardens, or at least the gardens near St. Pat's Cathedral.
Yeah.
Everyone else sort of went off to their own corner within the hall. I was like, let's cross the road, let's go in the sun.
Yeah.
It was a nice day. It was a, open area of, parks and birds and possums and, less humans.
Yes. Yep.
And so there would have been, there was, a section like that where we sort of spoke together, or were put in a situation where we were speaking about a lot of the, some of these things for the first time, and other things that we've talked about these ones before.
Yeah,
but really giving us some synopsis of different things to consider that you may not have considered before, that are basically involved in a life together.
Yeah, if anything, now the whole course, the weekend course was good, right? It was really helpful, but I found that was the best thing for me was actually when so the day ended, they actually gave us a bottle of wine. They gave all the couples a bottle of wine as well, to sit down and.
They did. We did do a take-home one, and we also did something during the day as well.
Right.
But yes, they did. They said, they gave you a bottle of wine and said, "Here, go and think about this at home." Like, wow, conducive to thought, hey?
Yeah. So we thought, all right, we'll go and have dinner. So we went to, I don't know whose house, wherever it was. Anyway, we had dinner at someone's house, and then we sat down together and went through like these questions and statements. And I thought that was good because it was. Yes, we decided we were engaged, we want to get married and things like that. But this really challenged us to think about what were we on the same page about, and what were our differences of opinions, and how were we going to work it out together. Now, fortunately, we didn't really have that big a difference of opinion, right? Except I think there was something about how many kids do you think you'll have? And I said, we'd probably be open to about, 3 or 4. And Isabel goes, what about 10? I think she said something like that. now that didn't happen in reality, but yeah, we've got 2. But it was good because yes, we dealt with the serious questions, had a good laugh about some of the questions too. It was good to have a bit of a giggle about it. But I felt that really helped us to say to really, even though we were engaged, to say, we're on the right journey. We're, we have made the right decision in wanting to go ahead and get married. Was any, can you remember at all the conversation you had with Priscilla about those questions? Anything that came out of that at all, or the experience of it?
Specifics, not so much, mainly because, similar to you, we didn't really sort of have major disagreements. Obviously, otherwise this conversation might have been a different turn.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
I'm trying to remember now. I got a feeling we had this place ready. So I'd bought the place we're living in now before we got married, because that's when it was GFC time and the prices were down, and I got to do it anyway. So we'd been looking. We were looking not too long after you guys actually bought your place, like back in 2008.
Yep.
And we wandered through the display homes. I remember we took you guys and Lino and Bernie along once, and we ended up in a 50 square house and looking at all the things that were just way out of the budget.
Yes.
But but enjoying it all the same. Obviously, we set it on something more suitable and realistic.
Yep.
But I'm pretty sure when we did the course, we had the house, so we're actually sort of sat in here, probably just on the old fold-out couch, sort of talking about it. I do remember that. Same as you, sort of realizing at the end of it that, we're quite similar in a lot of things, and the differences are complementary differences.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. Now, going ahead to the day of the wedding, right? So at my wedding, apart from when Isabel got a bit nervous and she accidentally said awful husband instead of lawful husband, and Father Michael couldn't stop laughing. And that was quite funny. Yeah. So now I've committed to that now. I have been an awful husband. So Isabel can be happy that I kept my promise.
As awful as I could be.
As awful as I can bear. Yeah. So, and poor Isabel, because it's on tape now. So we've got it on, it's recorded forever. But I remember that we made our vows and did the rings and everything. And then I was like, it hit me. It's like, wow, this is it. This is permanent. This is different. You know what I mean? Like it dawned on me, like I knew we were committing like forever and whatever else. So I knew what I was getting into, but that in that moment, it really hit me. It's like, this can't be undone. There's no going back from here. And I wasn't scared. I thought that was a good thought to me. It's like, this is it. Did you have any, I don't know if you can remember, but at your wedding, was there any one moment where were there any profound thoughts or realizations you had at any point, before, during, after the wedding happened?
There was one that sort of stuck out a little, is that when the procession was all coming up, so obviously us boys were waiting at the front and the girls were fashionably late. And then everyone walked up. So the first person to walk up was Damien, your page boy.
Oh, no, we'll never
your
forget,
son as page boy.
Yeah.
And he was only, probably wasn't even 2 then.
Yeah.
And so I guess we made a bit of a gamble in trusting him with our rings.
Yeah.
And so he got sort of near the front and maybe he realised everyone's attention was on him. So instead of giving me the rings nicely like he would nowadays, he threw them in my general direction.
Yeah,
I thought, I hope this isn't a sign.
Yeah, they were on a cushion.
No.
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, hope this isn't a sign. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I remember because we had the rehearsal for your wedding the night before. So me and Isabel, we were practicing with Damien, and and he was being a grumpy boy. He's like, no, I don't want to do this. Not that he wanted to go. He's like, we come up slowly. He's like, I don't want to go slowly. All that kind of stuff. And we were really nervous on the day of the wedding, like about how he was going to go with bringing the rings up, because he wasn't great during rehearsal. Let's just say that, right? So then on the day of the wedding, he's coming up and I'm looking at him, just willing him to come up. Oh, thank God. He's doing really well. Thank God. And then he gets right to the end and he throws the rings like, no. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, you've got to have at least one gaff at a wedding. At least it was just that. Yeah. The rest of the ceremony went well. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Now, what about since? You've been married for 12 years. How's it going?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, good to hear. Yeah, yeah. Any reflections though? Yeah, it's going all right. Yeah, that's right. Yep. I've been a great awful husband. It's been all right. Yeah. Any reflections on the journey? Anything that you've picked up along the way? You've had a couple of kids now. Anything about the joys and struggles of doing marriage together?
Essentially, you learn that yours isn't the only opinion, if you hadn't learnt that already.
Yeah.
And
sure.
In some cases, you might no longer have an opinion.
Yeah, there's that too. Yep.
In some matters.
Yep.
There's just something where you just don't get to say on, which generally you tend to go ahead with that because it's usually something outside your area of expertise anyway.
Yeah.
But no, it's something that it's almost just a part of you now. It's just a part of me now. That it's to change something now would just be, it's a seismic shift in what I'd be comfortable with, what I'm used to. It basically, like you said, it changes who you are.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that, and I would say that the same thing really. Not only does it, spiritually through the sacrament change who you are, but it definitely changes who you are as a person, because suddenly, there's what I've felt is that there's a co-responsibility, the husband for the wife and the wife for each other. And then that responsibility extends to whoever comes along. So we've got 2 kids and you've got 2 kids as well. So there's that responsibility that comes along with it, and accepting that I'm no longer just about myself, and I don't mean that in a selfish way, but before you're married, even before you're engaged, you're looking at, your own life and the things that you're doing, whatever else. But suddenly, and I mean this a good way, I can't do anything. I can't make any decision. I can't try out anything without it being discussed, with my wife first. And when I say discussed, I mean what am I trying to say? I get to share my interests with someone else. That's what I'm trying to say. And she gets to share her interests with me. And actually that's really cool. Like there's someone else I can always talk to about it, which is a good thing. Yeah. One more thing, just as a reflection on marriage, and then we'll move on to our next topic. I was thinking about how the idea of what I said before, that, I was saying that theologian who said that, well, when you look at God, all you see is the oneness, right? Well, marriage is kind of the same thing, right? So when you're bonded in marriage, I said we become, you say I'm forming a community. It's a community of oneness. And what I would hope is that, and it's always a hope, I can never tell, someone else would have to tell me, right? Is that we've all done marriage well enough that when people see Lindsay, they also see Isabel. And when people see Isabel, they also see Lindsay. And the same with you. When people see Gerry, they see Pris, and they can't think of Pris without thinking of Gerry, if that kind of makes sense. The idea of the oneness of love that we've made now in the commitments to our marriage. Yeah, does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, and I suppose extending it to a more poignant example of our wives, I know that anything Priscilla says to Isabel, you're probably going to know about it.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. Yep.
And anything that Isabel says to Priscilla, that I'll end up finding out about it.
That's right. Yes.
So that's something you would know as well. So essentially, it's not as though that I'd expect either of our wives to hide things from you or I, but it's just that is what being in the marriage relationship is that you share everything with them, and that includes if you've got something that you want to tell privately, well, you should go and find someone who's single, or perhaps even a priest.
Yeah. Yes.
Or you could just tell someone in a married relationship, and then two people will know about it.
Yeah. Now, I can say this because I'm just making sure she's not around and not hearing what I'm saying, so I can say this. This is a secret I am keeping from her. So next Tuesday is Isabel's birthday. This is at time of recording, right? So her birthday would have passed by the time this episode comes out. The only thing I've kept from Isabel in our marriage is that I'm organising a birthday party for her next Tuesday, which you obviously are coming to as well. But that's an exception to the rule of not keeping things from your spouse. This is one thing I'm definitely keeping from her because I want it to be a secret. Yeah. Even though my mum might have accidentally spilled the beans, but we're managing that too. So I've had to invent a whole narrative to try and convince Isabel that we're not doing anything on Tuesday. Yeah.
And this is why you don't bring lies into the relationship.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, because I always got to get caught. Yeah. What I'm hoping Isabel's birthday will be like, I'm just talking quietly here, is that people will just rock up. So I haven't said rock up all at the same time, so everyone just comes surprise at the door. I was thinking more like The Hobbit, when the dwarves come up, in pairs, whatever else and Bilbo's like, what do they all do? What are they doing here? So I was thinking the same thing. I've told everyone, just rock up and just say, oh, we thought we'd come in person and wish you happy birthday, Isabel. So, but all just between 5:30 and 6. Yeah, I'm hoping to have like a Hobbit experience. It's probably, Isabel will be like, yeah, I knew you were coming. That's what it's going to end up being like. Yeah. All right. Let's move on and let's move to the second part of the show where we're going to talk about science.
What a fine day for science.
You have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Can you reverse the polarity?
I'll do my best.
All right, so Gerry, Caroline has taken a break from the show until Marilyn's wedding, just to focus on that and a few other things that she's been doing. So we've been carrying the science topic since. Now, when I say carrying, yeah, we've been doing something. Right?
Would you say dragging?
Dragging, yeah, we've been dragging, yeah. Being dragged along by the science. Anyway, it's been fun because I've been doing a bit of reading and learning a couple of things. And I thought today we would talk about an article that I found it was originally published in The Conversation in 2021 in November, and it was then republished at space.com, a favorite source of mine, by the way, for science topics, because there are so many good articles here. This one is about the moon's top layer. It says the moon's top layer alone has enough oxygen to sustain 8 billion people for 100,000 years. So I thought I'd talk about that today and explain how the science of this how this has been discovered. So first of all, it says here that alongside advances in space exploration, we've seen much time and money invested in technologies that could allow effective space resource utilization. And at the forefront of this is obviously how do we produce oxygen in space, in different environments in space. And a couple of episodes ago, I did a discussion about producing oxygen on the moon. The Mars rover has a device attached to it that has been producing very small quantities of oxygen on the moon, which is really cool. But sorry, not on the moon, on Mars. However, the moon is the most likely destination of human beings with the Artemis missions that are coming up, which almost launched but didn't launch, and will hopefully launch this month. So what they're thinking is we want to set up a permanent human presence on the moon. And to do that, we need to be able to produce oxygen on the moon. So the moon itself has an atmosphere, but the atmosphere is made up of hydrogen, neon, and argon, which is not the mixture of gas that could support any human life. However, they say that there is actually a lot of oxygen on the moon, as I hinted at in the headline of this article, but it's just not in gaseous form. It's trapped in what's called the regolith, which is the layer of rock and fine dust that covers the moon's surface. And what they propose here is that if oxygen could be extracted from this regolith, it would be enough to support human life on the moon. At least that's the theory. So I want to mention also, and this is really cool, that Australia gets a mention here, the Australian Space Agency. They've actually signed a deal with NASA to send an Australian-made rover to the moon as part of the Artemis program. So I would say that's not part of Artemis 1, it's most likely part of Artemis 2. And its goal is going to be to collect lunar rocks that could ultimately be used to produce breathable oxygen on the moon. So a couple of things about this. So oxygen is found in minerals all around us on the Earth. And the moon is made mostly of the same rocks that you would find on Earth as well. So there are minerals such as silica, aluminium, and iron and magnesium oxides that dominate the moon's landscape. As a side note, Gerry, I just want to point out that I said aluminium, which might be jarring for some of our listeners because I think they say aluminum. Does that sound about right? Is that how they say it in America?
I've heard of it being pronounced like that, yeah.
Yeah,
so like battery and battery.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So if anyone's a bit jarred by me saying aluminium, that's just the way we do it around here. But I'm talking about good old US aluminum. Okay, that's what I'm getting at.
Talking about Coke cans.
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's what. True. So all of those minerals I just listed contain oxygen, but obviously not in a way that our lungs can actually process. It needs to be converted to a gas. So what it says here is that on the moon, these minerals exist in the forms including hard rock, dust, gravel, and stones that cover the surface. And so the material released from these come from the impacts of meteorites that crashed into the lunar surface over thousands and thousands of years. Some people call it the Earth's or the moon's version of soil, but it's not soil in the way that we understand it. It's actually, so obviously we have soil. We're very fortunate to have that because it's one of the things that keeps us alive. Soil is basically the work of organisms that work on rocks, digest rocks and process and whatever else, and it becomes soil. Now, regolith is what you have before organisms do their work on rocks. So what we then have is a matrix of minerals which were not present in the original rock. So Earth soil is imbued with, its remarkable physical, chemical, and biological characteristics, whereas the materials on the moon are basically the original untouched form. So they believe that the moon's regolith is made up of approximately 45% oxygen, but that oxygen is tightly bound into the minerals as mentioned above. So in order to break apart those bonds and release the oxygen as gaseous form, they require energy. Now, if Caroline was here, she'd be able to explain this to us, but they need a process called electrolysis, I should say. And this is commonly used in manufacturing to produce aluminium or aluminum. And what happens is basically an electrical current is passed through a liquid form of aluminium oxide called alumina via electrodes, which separate the aluminium from the oxygen. Now, on Earth, the byproduct of producing aluminium this way is oxygen. Now, on the moon, the oxygen would be the main product and the aluminium itself would then be the byproduct, which would be very useful because it could be used to construct other things on the moon. So although it's a very straightforward process, what they're saying here is that there are some catches. One catch is that the machinery itself requires vast amounts of energy. So what they're theorizing is that could they use solar energy, on the moon in order to power machines? The other option, the other complication is that these machines are quite large, and we would have to get them to the moon's surface. So maybe take the parts there and have them constructed on the moon. So moving that equipment is also a big challenge as well. So it says here we have the technology to do it. It's just getting there and having the energy to run it. Now, in 2021, Belgium-based startup Space Application Services announced it was building 3 experimental reactors to improve the process of making oxygen via electrolysis. And they expect to send this technology to the moon in 2025 as part of the European Space Agency's in situ resource utilization, or ISRU mission. So, I mean, that would be really cool to see how that all works out. So lastly, how much oxygen could we get out of the moon, potentially? Now, I've already talked about it in the headline, but let's go through the science of this very quickly. So scientists believe that there is a lot. There is a large, vast amount of oxygen that could potentially be released in the moon to make it to have a breathable to have a breathable habitat there. So it says if we ignore the oxygen that's tied up in the deeper hard rock material of the moon and just consider the regolith alone, the estimates say that regolith contains 1.4 each cubic meter contains 1.4 tons of minerals on average, which includes about 630 kilograms of oxygen. Now, NASA says that humans need to breathe 800 grams of oxygen a day to survive. So 630 kilograms of oxygen from 1.4 tons of minerals would keep a person alive for just over 2 years by estimate. So it says, now let's assume the average depth of the regolith is about 10 meters and that we can extract all of the oxygen from this. This means that the top 10 meters of the moon's surface would provide enough oxygen to support all 8 billion people on Earth for about 100,000 years. So the answer is a lot. There's a lot of oxygen there. So it would depend on things like how effectively it was managed to extract and use the oxygen. But they reckon, obviously, that this figure is quite amazing. Now, oxygen would also not just be used for humans to breathe, but oxygen is also part of the mixture of rocket fuel as well. So potentially launching rockets as a fuel source straight from the moon there's possibilities there as well. So it concludes by saying, having said that, we do have it pretty good here on Earth, and we should do everything we can to protect the blue planet and its soil in particular, which continues to support all terrestrial life without us even trying. So there it is, Gerry, the science of producing oxygen on the moon. Now, if there was oxygen on the moon in habitats, do you think you'd go for a visit?
I'm sure. Yeah, sure, I would.
Just go.
But I didn't have to, wear a hazmat suit or a moon suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could say, just going for a walk outside.
Yeah, I'm going for a stroll on the moon.
Outside my moon hotel.
Yeah, that's right. I wonder how many people, if that...
We're going to explore the gardens.
That's right, yeah, the moon rocky gardens, yeah. I just wonder if how many, if it became a touristy place for people to go, how many people would walk out and step on the moon for the first time and say, that's one small step for man, while everyone just rolls their eyes. And occasional tour guys going, yeah, we've never heard that one before.
You're so original.
Yeah, wow. Did you make that up yourself? Where did you hear that? Yeah.
Yeah, I like that story because a lot of the times when you hear about stories about populating the moon or visiting the moon, it's all about the getting there, which is obviously a pretty critical step in doing so. But I always had it in my head that when we're going to land on the moon, if we ever stay on the moon, it's going to be something like, say, the International Space Station is. It's going to be a dedicated, fenced-off area where
absolutely
you can't get out and it's all self-contained.
Yeah.
But what this is talking about is actually harvesting what's there on the moon as opposed to, bringing your own oxygen.
That's it.
Bring a backpack of oxygen, bottle of oxygen, bottle of water.
Yeah.
It sort of talks about the sustainability of such a project, which, to be honest, we're not going to be able to keep sending rockets every time we want to do something on the moon. If it does end up getting populated, it needs to be able to look after itself, long term.
Yeah.
And so it did talk on here about the use of solar energy, which, clearly that's probably the, given the thinner atmosphere and all that is probably something you would certainly look to start to doing, is something that can run autonomously, not something that needs machinery or mining or something to be able to continue. So let's go bad question time.
Yep.
So obviously if we're going to use solar energy on the moon, so is there I suppose the question would be, is there a perfect spot to put this so you get sun all the time? So given that the Earth rotates around the sun, and then the moon rotates around Earth, and we only see the same face of the moon.
Yes.
So does the moon's rotation plus the Earth's rotation mean that there is a spot that's always sunny on the moon?
Right. That's a good question. So I don't know the answer to that. But
yeah, I know Lindsay doesn't know the answer to this because it's out of the blue.
Yep.
So just same as the listeners, Lindsay's in the same boat as you. I didn't tell him or plan him or anything like that. So So we'll go to the answer.
Yep.
So if this sounds like a trick question, it is.
It is a trick question. Okay.
And the reason we can tell this is because we know that Earth only sees the same portion of the moon, right?
Yes. Yes, that's right. Yes.
And so because we see a full moon, we see a gibbous moon, which makes me think of monkeys.
Yes. Yep.
Etc. Because we're only seeing that, we're only seeing where the sun's hitting on the moon.
Of course. Yep.
So there is actually no good spot on the moon because we get a day of 24 hours where we get darkness and light. The moon's orbit, what the moon sees of the sun, because we see it goes over a month.
Yes.
But there is no one spot on the moon that gets sun all the time.
Yes, right. So they'd have to problem solve that somehow as well. I wonder if
it'd be like night and day, except night and day would be a lot longer on the moon.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah. Thank God scientists have to work that out and not us. Yeah. I wonder if they've talked about in the future, and I don't know how this would work, but they talked about, for example, nuclear powered rockets being the future, because obviously, fuel rockets are not going to. It's not a sustainable industry in the long term. I wonder if having some source of nuclear power on the moon, getting it there again is a massive challenge, but I wonder if that's the stopgap. So that you've got a combination of this source of energy, solar energy, whatever other energy they might devise in the future. I just wonder.
We should just have elevators.
Yeah, that's right. I need a space elevator. That's all. Yeah, that's it.
And every time the moon comes past, okay, you got to go on now. Otherwise you're going to miss you.
Get on now or you're going to miss the moon. Yeah, you have to come back tomorrow. Yeah. I got to run. I got to catch a space elevator. Yeah. No, that's awesome. All right. Well, let's move on and let's have our final segment of the show. Let's talk about entertainment.
I don't know where you get your delusions, laser brain.
This is not what we came here to do.
No, but it's what I'm going to do.
I have a plan. You've got a plan. I have part of a plan.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
So, Gerry, you've been here for this before in the past in your episodes with us. In that first year, we just like to talk about anything that we've been watching, reading, any apps we've been using, any activities we've been involved in recently that have been fairly entertaining, bit of fun, shared some insights, whatever it might be. Anything you're watching or you've been doing recently that you want to share with us?
Yeah, so the ones we're watching at the moment, I'm making my way slowly through the Cobra Kai series. As well as the Karate Kid movies as well. So we'd watched the original one, number one, but I hadn't watched the second two movies.
Yep.
And so over the last school holidays in September, I managed to get both of those under my belt because apparently they're critical.
Yes, you must watch the movies to watch the series, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and then, watch a couple of episodes here and there. So at the moment I'm up to season 3 of Cobra Kai. I think they've released up to 5. There's talk of doing 6 and then another movie.
Yep.
Sort of situates me there. So I'll probably get to the end of it, I reckon I'd fit it in by Christmas.
Yeah.
Very much enjoying that show. It's obviously set in California, which could be a problem depending on what you'd expect to see on there. But they do run the show, in a really good way. Like most of the characters are interesting. I love how they've been able to bring back either as cameos or as full timers.
Yes,
people from the original movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Daniel LaRusso, Johnny Lawrence, who were the main character and protagonist
in the first one,
and then John Kreese as well, who was the ultimate protagonist.
Yes.
Across I think movies number 1 and number 3. Yep. They've introduced the next generation of characters, and for once, when they've introduced the next generation, it's not a whole bunch of annoying people.
Yeah, I know. Yes, thank goodness.
Is the way sometimes a new generation in an old show has actually done.
Yeah,
but what
thank
I like
goodness it's not Bold and the Beautiful karate. It's yeah.
That could be interesting.
Yeah. Or not. Yeah. Nothing happens for 9 months. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go on.
Yeah, that's right. They interrupt. Sorry, I interrupt myself. They line up all the characters so that each of them, you see a background of each one. Mm-hmm. There's obviously different factions and everything. There's always got to be, who you'd perceive to be a bad guy, but they do explore that character's role and their backstory as well. Yeah. So, for example, there's a few of the newer generation, the younger kids who, you look at them from the surface, they seem nasty, they seem horrible, and they do horrible things in there. But they then focus on, they spend a few minutes in an episode on showing where their life is at the moment and what where they've come from. Yeah. And while you might not necessarily agree that how they've become is a good outcome from what they were exposed to, it does show you they didn't start off like that.
Yes.
And, they even, like, no person has started off like that. I haven't got to it all yet, but they've shown John Kreese to be a nice bloke.
Yes, yeah, there's a bit of humanising of him, yes, yep.
Yeah, I mean, all I've seen so far is, him working in a diner and then signing up to the army because he wants to serve, that whole, wanting to serve his country and, that heartwarming stuff. And clearly something happens in between.
I won't say anything.
That stage when, of course. Yeah. Clearly something happens in between that where he's like a 20-year-old joining the army to the nasty piece of work that he is in the current series. But
definitely. Yep.
He doesn't just join as a bad person. Yeah. Like when you don't have time to explore it in a movie, you just get told, okay, he's a bad person. Get used to it. Expect him to,
Yeah. Yeah, so true. What I've loved about, the funny side of things, the comedy. I think Johnny Lawrence is my favorite character. Yep. I love him. I love that he's basically stuck in the 80s. So all of his music that he listens to, he's really skeptical about new music. He's always making fun of the kids' music and everything. And I just love how he's so bad with technology. Like, he is so bad. Like, he doesn't know how to use his laptop properly. There was, I don't know.
Talks about sending a Facebook message and saying how long will it take to get there. It's a different state. Might take a couple of days.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And
I would say the scenes with Johnny Lawrence and the kid Miguel, who's been in there from the start, they steal the show for me. I love watching them. I can watch a whole episode of them.
I love that.
The writers have done really well with what they've made Johnny Lawrence become, and what he's trying to be, as well as pairing him with Miguel, who's fatherless. He's got a mother and a grandmother. Lives with his mother and grandmother in the same set of apartments as Johnny Lawrence, and just the relationship that those two have with each other. It's heartwarming as well as being a complete laugh.
Yeah,
you'd love to know those people in real life and just be around them when they had conversations. Like,
yes, yeah, exactly. And even the way that Johnny wants to teach kids to be tough, and so a lot of these kids are actually quite nice to each other. That need to be tough. They're not necessarily always getting bullied. He's like, you got to like this. You've got to. I don't want to say too much about what happens for anyone who hasn't seen it, but that whole tough guy persona that he's trying to put on, and it's actually not always very helpful advice. But what I do love is that he's learning as he goes along. Like, he's actually mentoring kids, and while they're learning valuable things from him, he's actually learning valuable things from them too. So I love, like you said, that those relationships they set up. The other thing that's interesting is that the show does a pretty good job of showing the difference between mentors, like good mentorship and bad mentorship, and what it can lead to. And I've really enjoyed seeing that all the way through season 5 as well.
Well, that was one of Mr. Miyagi's comments from season 1, is that there's no such thing as a bad student.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's just bad teacher.
Yes, and clearly the producers know their Karate Kid 1, 2, and 3 very well, because they incorporate a lot of nostalgia, but in a meaningful kind of way, not just for nostalgia's sake. Like those callbacks to Mr. Miyagi and everything. Yeah, it's a great series. I watched season 5 with Isabel, when it came out this year. Isabel and I, our claim to our favorite story now with this is that when the 4th season came out, we watched it in a day. We just watched the whole thing. We were packing our bags to go on holiday with you guys. Remember? Yeah, and then we watched the whole thing in a day at that point. While we were packing, we went to bed at, I think, 1 o'clock in the end, but we're just so so taken in by the story. Yeah, it's good fun. Yes, my favorite line from Johnny Lawrence was he recorded a video to advertise Cobra Kai. I think you've seen this, haven't you? And then
I would have, because he's up to Eagle Fang now.
Oh, yeah, so you've seen it, yeah. All right, so he's recording a video like on one of the kids' phones to put on Instagram, straight, to advertise Cobra Kai. And he's doing the whole, you want to be tough, that kind of stuff. And when he finishes, he goes, now hash brown that video and send it to the internet. It's just stuff like that. Just gets you by surprise. Yeah. Look, my one is Isabel and I have been watching a show called Kim's Convenience. Now, we discovered it by accident on Netflix, and I think someone had mentioned it to me. I don't know if Lino mentioned it or someone else. Anyway, but we just happened to come by and start watching it, and it's in that vein of comedy series, where you got like 22-minute episodes, like kind of situation comedy. This one takes place in Canada, I think in Toronto. I could be wrong about this. But it's about a Korean family who owns a convenience store, hence Kim's Convenience. Their surname is Kim. And, the mum and dad in the family, they speak English, but they've got very thick Korean, accents. Whereas the kids who are adults now, are very much enmeshed in, in culture, and they get it and know what's going on. And it's, there's a difference, there's this difference in understanding between the two. And it's very much one of those things where it's a family comedy, and there's a bit of drama mixed in, and I like the mixture of drama and comedy, the way that they do it. The couple are very funny in the way that they look at the world, and in the inappropriate things that they say to people thinking it's okay to say. So there's like that kind of comedy as well. But it's I didn't realize that, because I did some research on it. So the series Kim's Convenience was originally a play, like a stage play, that was written by a young man who was writing about his experience of growing up as a Korean in Canada, and his dad had owned a convenience store. So the actors that did the play are in the series, except for the son. The son was the playwright. He also played, he wrote the play and played the son as well. But he, I think he produced the TV show, and then he got, I think it's Sim Lu, who plays Shang-Chi in the Marvel movies now. So he played the son in the series. So there's five seasons of it. We're in season 3 now, and it's very funny all the way through. However, family content warning: you can't watch it with your kids, because unfortunately there are episodes that are all adult humor. There are quite a few that aren't, but yeah, definitely not one to watch with the kids. There's one episode I thought was quite the funniest scene I've had so far is where the daughter is looking after the store, and then the dad walks in with a he calls it a bullhorn. What do we call it? The megaphone, right? He's got a megaphone, and she goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I got this for $5." And she goes, "Why did you get it?" He goes, "Because it was $5. It's a bargain." and then he goes to the front of the store behind the desk, and while she's working, and he starts using it, and he goes he goes, "Janet, clean up in aisle 2. She's getting really annoyed. And then he goes, "Janet, can you come to the front desk?" And she goes, "I'm not coming." And there's other customers, and he goes, "When Janet was 4 years old, she said she wanted to marry her daddy." And he starts, and so she's like, "All right, I'm coming. Yeah, it's very, very funny. Yeah, so it's like comedy like that. There's some really good moments. So totally recommend it. Yeah, that's all I've got for today. Anything else, Gerry?
No, that's, I usually sort of do one TV show at a time. So
yeah,
I'll be on that one for a while, I think.
Yeah, it'll take a bit of time to get through.
I don't eat it all in one go.
Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just watch it slowly. Except for season 4, we did eat all in one go. We got hooked. Yeah, I have to throw out a special mention of Star Trek Lower Decks, by the way, as well. So I've been watching that. It's like a comedy sort of adult Star Trek series. They revisited a location from a beloved Star Trek series called Deep Space Nine. And the episode was amazing. I have to mention that too. It was very funny, but also kind of emotional, like nostalgic emotional. Like it was an episode of Lower Decks. However, it felt like an episode of Deep Space Nine. So the writers knew what they were doing. So shout out for that one. All right, so let's wrap it up there. So before we go, we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons and to thank you for listening to episode 85 of the Catholics of Oz. Our patrons make it possible for us to create this show, and today we would love to thank Hayden S, Amanda H, Dave G, Franklin P, and Mary S. Through their generous donations at sqpn.com/give, they make it possible for the Catholics of Oz and all the shows on StarQuest to continue. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Also, we would love to know your thoughts about the topics we've discussed today, so you can send your feedback by visiting sqpn.com, where you can also find the links from today's show. And while you're at the website, don't forget to sign up for the StarQuest Insiders Club and get the newsletter to get updates about your favorite shows, which is at sqpn.com/about/newsletter. Don't forget that SQPN has all of its socials as well. Facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, the handle at SQPN. Also search for StarQuest on Instagram. It's all there. And don't forget that we have our own Catholics of Oz Facebook page, Facebook.com/Catholics of Oz, spelt OZ. You can also join us there and discuss our episodes. And also don't forget that you can also find us on Discord through SQPN's Discord. So the details for that are at sqpn.com/Discord, so you can sign up there. And also, don't forget you can reach us by good old email, which is catholicsofOz@sqpn.com. Gerry, it was awesome having you. This is like a blast from the past. A blast from the past? It was also a blast from the past. So thank you, Gerry, so much for joining me today and saving me from doing a solo episode. So thank you for joining me for today's episode today.
It's been a pleasure, and I think we need a round of applause now that we have both of our hands.
Yay!
Clappity, clappity, clap.
Yeah, clappity, clap. Yep. Dom, insert some clapping noises here, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Insert the sound of two hands clapping.
Yeah, just two hands. Yep, that's it. Yep. And once again, I'm Lindsay Sant, and thank you so much for joining us on episode 85 of the Catholics of Oz.